She never thought she'd hear that voice again, especially not at Christmas. But when the phone rang in the dead of night, 10 years of buried pain came crashing back. Now, an unexpected reunion threatens to unravel everything: family secrets, old guilt, and a truth that could change their lives forever. In the sleepy town of Sunny Creek, as twinkling lights glow and cinnamon scents the air, Marianne feels something stir inside her, something she thought was lost. But nothing prepares her for what happens when Gabriel walks back through her door. Before we begin this emotional journey, where are you listening from? And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss a single chapter. The warm December wind whispered through the streets of Sunny Creek, a small Midwest town that seemed to sparkle when Christmas drew near. Simple house fronts glowed with red and gold lights, and the smell of fresh cornbread mixed with the sweet scent of blooming dogwoods. But none of it could brighten the heart of Marianne Davis, 32, who stared out the living room window without really seeing anything. Marianne was known around town for restoring antique furniture. Her workshop behind her mother's house always smelled of varnish and fresh wood. But this month, she'd barely touched a single piece. Her heart felt locked tight, no room for anything new. 10 years had passed since her family shattered into silence. 10 years since she'd last spoken to her older brother, Gabriel, whose absence had become a deep wound, not just for her, but for her mother, Lucia, who hid her grief like swept under the rug dust. That Saturday, Lucia sorted through a box of old Christmas decorations, humming songs she'd learned as a girl, a ritual she'd always shared with Marianne and Gabriel together. Now, seeing only her daughter beside her, the melody felt thinner. The whole town's already decorated, Lucia said with a tired smile. We could put up our tree today, couldn't we? Marianne took a slow breath. Maybe. Might do us good. Deep down, she wasn't sure. In December, every memory seemed sharper, especially the ones she'd tried to bury. As they assembled the artificial tree, the same one used for decades, a small box tumbled from the closet shelf. Among worn ribbons and faded red bulbs, a yellowed envelope caught Marianne's eye. She recognized it instantly. Her heart raced. Mom, this. She picked it up carefully, afraid it might crumble. Lucia froze. Her eyes glistened. Don't open that, honey. But it was too late. Marianne slid out the photo inside, her, Lucia, and Gabriel smiling before a makeshift Christmas tree. Marianne held a newspaper-wrapped gift. Gabriel was making a silly face. The last picture of them together. Why did you hide this? I didn't hide it. Just couldn't bear to see it again. The silence felt thick, heavy like snow, if snow ever fell there. Marianne put the photo back without a word. A knot tightened in her throat. 10 years without a word from her brother. 10 years of unanswered questions. Lucia cleared her throat, changing the subject. Heard they're reopening the old cultural center, she said, hanging a gold star on the treetop. That building's been closed since your father. She stopped. Another painful memory. The sudden loss of Mr. Anthony, her husband, had started the family's unraveling. Gabriel hadn't handled the grief well. Neither had Marianne. But he'd run from the pain, while she'd clung to it like an anchor. Mom. Marianne began softly. Do you still think he'll come back? Lucia gave a sad smile. A mother always hopes, sweetheart. It's the one thing nobody can take away. Marianne didn't reply. Part of her wished it too, but admitting it felt too dangerous. Hours later, walking to the town square for workshop fabrics, Marianne noticed Sunny Creek felt unusually alive. Kids dashed past, vendors set up stalls, and a band practiced off-key but heartfelt carols. On the gazebo, a sign read, 26th Annual Sunny Creek Christmas Fair, celebrate the magic of togetherness. The phrase stung. The magic of togetherness. To her, it sounded like a cruel joke. Inside the fabric shop, Mrs. Teresa greeted her with wide arms. "Marianne. Thought you'd vanished off the earth. Working through Christmas or just hiding from the world?" Marianne forced a laugh. "Just grabbing supplies. I know December weighs heavy," Mrs. Teresa said gently. "But you gotta let life back in, or it'll slip right past you." Marianne paid quickly and left. The warm air hit her face like a wall. On her walk home, she found Henry, her childhood friend, strumming his guitar on the neighbor's porch steps. He always visited family this time of year. His face seemed untouched by time. "Look who decided to show up," he grinned. "Thought you'd turned into a ghost." "Just busy," she shrugged. "Same as always." Henry plucked a soft chord. "That tiredness has a name, doesn't it? But don't worry. Christmas has a way of shaking things up. Sometimes for the better." Before she could reply, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Message. "Marianne, urgent. We need to talk about Gabriel." The world went silent. Henry noticed instantly. "You okay? You're white as a sheet." Marianne shoved the phone away. Wrong number. But she knew it wasn't. She felt it in her bones. Walking home, each step felt heavier. What could have happened? Who sent this? Why now, so close to Christmas, when old wounds already ached? That night, sleep wouldn't come. Tossing in bed, she watched the ceiling, listening to the antique family clock tick like a countdown. Near dawn, her phone rang again. Same unknown number. Her finger hovered. Air vanished from her lungs. Before she could think, she answered. "Hello?" Her voice trembled. A pause. A silence so deep it hummed. Then, a rough, achingly familiar voice. "Marianne, it's me." It was Gabriel. And in that instant, Christmas began to change everything. The silence after Gabriel's "it's me" felt so alive that Marianne could almost touch it. On the other end of the line, he was breathing deeply, as if weighing each word before letting it escape. "Marianne," he repeated, his voice low and heavy with something she couldn't name. "I know it's been a long time." The impact of that voice, so familiar yet so distant, hit her like lightning. Suddenly, all the memories flooded back, afternoons laughing by the river, painful fights, slammed doors, the silent night he packed a bag and left without looking back. Marianne took a deep breath. 10 years, Gabriel, she said, her voice steady but fragile. 10 years without a call. Without a message. Without anything. A long, heavy pause. "I know," he whispered. "And there's no excuse that fixes this. But I need to talk to you. It's important." The word stirred something uncomfortable in her. Important. It always was, or at least seemed to be for him. Gabriel was the type who waited until the world nearly collapsed before asking for help. "What happened?" Marianne asked, still tense. "Not over the phone," he said. I'm in town." Marianne went cold. For a second, the world tilted. The decorations in the room, the light from the window, even the neighbor's sounds, everything lost focus. "Where are you?" she managed to ask. "Mrs. Odette's boarding house. I got here yesterday." His breathing became irregular. "Marianne. I didn't come just to talk. I came because I need to come home. To you all. Before it's too late." The phrase echoed in her mind with strange weight. Before it's too late. But before she could respond, she heard her mother calling from downstairs. Lucia probably making coffee, the way she did when she woke too early with too many thoughts. I'll talk to you later," Marianne said, hanging up quickly. She sat frozen for several seconds, trying to process. Gabriel was in town. After 10 years. A decade of silence. A decade of hurt. And now he appeared, just like that, as if it were simple. But it wasn't. Downstairs, Lucia was stirring a pot on the stove. Fresh coffee filled the kitchen with familiar warmth. Her mother was humming softly, maybe unconsciously, the way she did on days when she tried to stay busy to avoid feeling too much. "Sleep okay?" Lucia asked without turning around. Marianne hesitated. Part of her wanted to tell about the call. The other part, the part still bleeding, wanted to protect her mother from disappointment in case Gabriel had come just to tear everything apart again. "SOSO," she answered evasively, grabbing a mug. But Lucia's gaze was sharp. She knew her daughter better than anyone. "You've had that look since yesterday," she said, setting down the spoon. "Something happen?" Marianne took a deep breath. "I'll tell you later, Mom. It's nothing serious." Lucia didn't push, but Marianne knew that sooner or later, everything would come out. The day dragged on. Marianne tried working in the workshop, but her hands shook every time she held a sander or brush. Her mind was elsewhere. In another time. And as afternoon crept forward, it became impossible to put off the inevitable. She walked to Mrs. Odette's boarding house with short, heavy steps, feeling each heartbeat like a drum. The place was simple and welcoming, smelling of cornbread and decorated with handmade wreaths. It reminded her of her grandmother's house. Mrs. Odette greeted her with surprise. "Marianne? What a lovely visit. Looking for someone?" Marianne wet her lips. "My brother. Gabriel. Is he here?" Mrs. Odette's expression softened almost knowingly. "Yes, dear. Room 3, down the hall." Walking to that door felt surreal. Each step brought a memory: Gabriel teaching her to ride a bike, Gabriel joking at dinner, Gabriel leaving in the middle of the night. When she stopped in front of the simple wooden door, her hands began to sweat. She took a deep breath. She knocked. The door opened slowly, revealing a Gabriel she barely recognized. He looked older than his 36 years, tired eyes, unshaven jaw, slumped shoulders. But there was something unmistakable about him, that restless air, as if he was always fighting something inside. "Marianne," he said with a sad smile. She stood speechless for a few seconds. "You changed," was all she could manage. He gave a humorless laugh. "Life takes its toll." Another long silence. Until he finally took a deep breath. "Thank you for coming. I thought you wouldn't show up." "I almost didn't," she said, honest. Gabriel gestured for her to come in. The room was simple but tidy. On the table, an open suitcase and scattered papers. Marianne noticed many had stamps, dates, signatures. Something bureaucratic. Something serious. "What is all this?" she asked. Gabriel sat on the bed, running his hand over his face. He looked tired in a way that went deeper than sleep, like he was carrying a weight he didn't know where to set down. "Marianne," he began, "I came back because I made a lot of mistakes. But I also came back because I got a diagnosis." Her heart squeezed. "A disease?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He nodded. "Nothing that puts you at risk. But something that puts my time at risk." He swallowed hard. "And I realized I don't want to end my life without making things right with you all. With our family." Marianne felt a cold impact pierce her chest. She hadn't expected that. Not like this. Not so sudden. Gabriel, why didn't you tell us before? Because I was ashamed. Scared. And because I thought you'd all be better off without me. He looked at her, his eyes wet. But you're not, are you? Marianne looked away. No, we're not. There was so much to say. So much that had been trapped in her throat for years. But it wasn't time yet. The knot was too big. Did you tell Mom? Marianne asked. No, he said. I don't know how to face her after all this time. Marianne sighed. She deserves to know. I know. But, can I tell her after Christmas? He asked, almost pleading. I just want a breath of normalcy. Maybe even a chance to be with you all again, even if just for a little while. Marianne watched him in silence, slumped shoulders, vulnerable gaze, raw nostalgia. It was hard not to feel the weight of that reunion. We'll take it one step at a time, she said finally. Gabriel smiled, relieved. Thank you, really. Marianne stood, breathing deeply. We'll talk more tomorrow morning. I need to think. And figure out how to tell Mom. She walked to the door. Gabriel stood up quickly. Marianne. He called before she left. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but don't give up on me again. I came back to try and do things different. Marianne stood quiet for a few seconds, feeling the weight of his words. I didn't give up on you, Gabriel, she answered with sincerity. You gave up on us. And now, we'll see if there's still time. She left before the tears came. On the walk back home, the town seemed different, brighter, more alive, as if Gabriel's presence had reorganized everything inside her. But at the same time, a new fear was taking shape. A fear that, after everything, he'd disappear from her life again, this time for good. When she got home, she found Henry sitting on the front wall, as if waiting for her. You look like you've seen a ghost, he commented, standing up. Marianne stopped in front of him, unsure how to begin. Henry, she said, her voice shaky. My brother came back. Henry's smile vanished. He looked at her seriously. That changes everything, doesn't it? Marianne took a deep breath. It does. And I don't know if I'm ready. Henry stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Christmas always brings what we least expect, he said. Sometimes it's exactly what we needed. She closed her eyes for a second, feeling the weight of the night, the memory, the reunion. And when she finally went inside, she knew that nothing, absolutely nothing, would be the same from here on. The night fell heavy over Sunny Creek. Marianne lay in bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Her phone rested on the nightstand, and she kept glancing at it, as if expecting Gabriel to send another message. But nothing arrived. Only silence, broken by the tick-tock of the old family clock and distant sounds of the sleeping town. She thought about how to tell Lucia. She thought about how that revelation, Gabriel's return, the diagnosis, everything, would shake her mother. Lucia had spent 10 years building a life without him, learning to live with absence like someone learning to walk with one leg missing. And now, suddenly, everything would come back? Marianne rolled in bed, unable to find comfort. She remembered when Gabriel left. She was 22. He was 26. They'd lost their father, Mr. Anthony, just 8 months before. The house still smelled of grief, wilted flowers, candles burning day and night. Gabriel couldn't handle it. He said the whole house was a tomb, that every room breathed death, that he had to leave or go crazy. Lucia had begged him to stay. Marianne too. But Gabriel had that lost, desperate look, like he was drowning and needed air urgently. He left one early morning, leaving only a note on the kitchen table: "I'm sorry. I can't do this. I need to find myself. Don't look for me." And they didn't. Or rather, Lucia tried, desperate, for weeks. But Gabriel had vanished so completely it was like he'd died too. Marianne finally fell asleep near 3 in the morning, and her dreams were fragmented and disturbing: images of Gabriel as a boy, running through the house, laughing, then Gabriel as an adult, with that empty stare, then Gabriel disappearing again, like smoke. When she woke, the sun was already high. Lucia was already in the kitchen, making breakfast. Marianne came down slowly, feeling the weight of the sleepless night on her shoulders. "You woke up late," Lucia commented without turning. "You sick?" Marianne took a deep breath. It was now or never. "Mom," she began, sitting at the table. "I need to tell you something." Lucia paused, spoon in the air. She knew that tone. It was the tone of someone carrying a bomb. "What is it?" she asked, turning to face her daughter. Marianne gathered courage. "Gabriel called me yesterday. He's in town. At Mrs. Odette's boarding house." The silence that followed was absolute. Lucia simply stood there, spoon still in hand, like she'd turned to stone. Her eyes blinked once, twice. Then, slowly, she set the spoon down in the sink. She began, her voice barely audible. "Is he okay?" The question was simple, but it carried 10 years of worry, nostalgia, and guilt. "More or less," Marianne answered, choosing her words carefully. "He wants to talk to us. He wants to come home. At least for a while." Lucia sat down in a chair, as if her legs had given out. Her eyes glistened. "After all this time?" she whispered. "I thought he'd never come back." Marianne reached out and touched her mother's hand. "He wants to tell you in person. Said he'd prefer after Christmas, but I don't think we can wait much longer." Lucia took a shaky breath, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Does he want to come here? Today?" "I think so," Marianne answered. "If you want, I can go get him." Lucia looked at her daughter, and in that gaze was so much emotion, hope, fear, love, anger, all mixed together in something about to overflow. "Let me get ready first," she said, standing with difficulty. 2 hours later, Marianne was back at Mrs. Odette's. Gabriel opened the door, and when she told him their mother wanted to see him, she saw panic take over his face. "Is she mad?" he asked nervously. "She's scared," Marianne replied. "Like me. Like all of us." The walk back home was silent. Gabriel walked beside Marianne, hands in his pockets, staring at the ground. The town seemed to recognize him. Some older neighbors waved with surprise, but he just nodded without stopping. When they arrived at the house, Lucia was at the door, standing, waiting. She wore a simple dress, but she'd done her hair and put on lipstick, small gestures that revealed how much this moment mattered. Gabriel stopped a few feet away, as if afraid to get too close. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice weak. Lucia watched him for a few seconds, really watched him, as if memorizing every detail, every line of his face, every gray hair. Then, without saying anything, she walked to him and held him. Gabriel collapsed into that embrace. His shoulders trembled. Lucia held him like she feared he'd disappear again if she let go. Marianne watched from a distance, feeling her own tears fall. When they finally separated, Lucia led him inside. The three sat in the living room, surrounded by the Christmas decorations they'd put up days before. The artificial tree glowed with twinkling lights, and there was something almost surreal about being here, the three of them together again, after so long. "Are you okay?" Lucia asked, holding Gabriel's hand like it was made of glass. Gabriel took a deep breath. "Mom, I have to tell you something," he said. "And it's important that you know." He told them everything, about the diagnosis, about the years away, about why he never reached out. He talked about the guilt he carried, about how their father's death had destroyed him, about how he thought it would be better for everyone if he disappeared. Lucia listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. Marianne also cried, but quietly. "You should have trusted us," Lucia said when Gabriel finally finished. "We're family. We suffer together, but we suffer together." "I know," Gabriel replied, his voice breaking. "And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything." The embrace that followed was different, not just reunion, but forgiveness. Not complete, not yet, but the first step. The days that followed were strange and wonderful at the same time. Gabriel began spending more time at home. He helped Lucia with small repairs, talked quietly with Marianne in the workshop, shared meals with them. There were moments when everything felt almost normal, as if the 10 years apart had never happened. But in other moments, the silence returned, heavy, dense, reminding them of wounds that still hadn't healed. One afternoon, while Marianne was sanding an old chair in the workshop, Gabriel walked in holding 2 glasses of passion fruit juice. "Thought you might be thirsty," he said, offering her one. She accepted. They stood there in silence for a few minutes, sunlight slipping through the wooden slats overhead. "You've gotten good at this," Gabriel said, nodding toward the chair. "You always did like fixing old things." "I learned on my own," she replied. "When you left, someone had to patch things up." The words came out sharper than she intended. Gabriel inhaled slowly. "Marianne," he began. No, she stood, rubbing her forehead. "You can't just walk back in and expect everything to feel the same. You hurt us, Gabriel. You hurt Mom. You hurt me." His eyes softened with a pain so raw that she almost regretted saying it. "I know," he said, genuinely. "And I'm not asking for quick forgiveness. I'm just, here. Trying." Marianne sat back down, tired. "How much time do you have?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. Gabriel hesitated. "The doctors think a few months. Maybe more, if things go well." She closed her eyes. "Months." The word felt like ice. "And after that?" she whispered, though she already knew. Gabriel didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, Henry showed up again, his guitar slung over his shoulder, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "The town's putting on a Christmas show tomorrow night," he said. "Lots of people are performing. I was thinking, maybe you could sing with me?" Marianne let out a startled laugh. "Henry, I don't sing." "You used to." His smile softened. "I heard you 1,000 times in your mom's kitchen. You had a beautiful voice." She looked away. There were so many pieces of herself she had buried over the years, dreams, hobbies, even parts of her personality. "I'll think about it," she murmured. But that night, lying in bed, listening to the distant whistle of the wind through the trees, Marianne felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. A tiny spark of possibility. A week passed. Gabriel began blending into their daily routine. Lucia took him around the neighborhood to visit old friends, introducing him like someone bringing home a lost son. Marianne kept her distance, not emotionally ready, but still watching, always watching. And in small, fragile moments, she saw glimpses of the Gabriel she used to know. The one who made her laugh. The one who protected her from bullies. The one whose eyes used to shine before grief dimmed them. Those glimpses cracked something in her chest. Then, 3 days before Christmas, something unexpected happened. Marianne was at the town square buying decorations when she spotted Gabriel talking to a woman near the gazebo. She wasn't much older than Marianne, warm brown hair, gentle smile, steady posture. There was something calming about her presence. And Gabriel, he looked different beside her. Lighter. Almost peaceful. Marianne's heartbeat sped up. When she approached, Gabriel waved her over. "Marianne, this is Beatrice," he said, smiling in a way she hadn't seen in years. "She's a doctor. We met a few years ago when I first started seeking help." Beatrice extended her hand warmly. "It's so nice to finally meet you. Gabriel has told me so much about you and your mom." Marianne shook her hand, feeling a strange sensation rising in her chest, not jealousy, but something deeper, a mix of curiosity, grief, and gratitude. "She's here visiting her family," Gabriel continued, "and she's staying in Sunny Creek for Christmas." "That's great," Marianne replied automatically. But what truly struck her was the way Gabriel looked at Beatrice. A look she recognized instantly. The look of someone who found something precious. When Beatrice excused herself to meet her mother, Marianne turned to Gabriel. "You too," she began awkwardly, unsure how to phrase it. "We're friends," Gabriel said quickly. "She helped me a lot. When I got the diagnosis, when I didn't know what to do, she listened." Marianne nodded slowly. "She seems kind." "She is," Gabriel said, relieved. "And I'd like her to spend Christmas Eve with us." Marianne inhaled. Another shift. Another unexpected turn. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll tell Mom." That evening, when Marianne told Lucia about Beatrice, her mother's reaction surprised her. "Oh, that's wonderful," Lucia said, smiling. "Gabriel deserves someone who cares for him." Marianne blinked. "You're not upset?" Lucia squeezed her daughter's hand. "Oh, sweetheart, I spent 10 years angry at Gabriel. And you know what? Anger didn't bring him back. Anger didn't heal anything." She took a deep breath. "Now that he's home, all I want is for him to feel a little happiness. Even if it's for a short time." Marianne felt tears burn behind her eyes. Her mother's strength always astonished her. 2 days before Christmas, the house felt alive again. Beatrice blended into the family effortlessly, helping Lucia in the kitchen, talking with Marianne about furniture restoration, and giving Gabriel a gentleness he desperately needed. But beneath it all, Marianne could see it. Gabriel was tiring. Sometimes he struggled to stay awake. Sometimes he moved slower. Sometimes he hid the pain behind a thin smile. Beatrice watched him constantly, with tender alertness. And Marianne realized something important. This wasn't about Gabriel leaving. It wasn't about the 10 years lost. It was about time. Time slipping away. Time becoming a precious, fragile thing. The day before Christmas Eve, Henry appeared again, this time with a new energy. "So," he said, leaning against the doorway with his guitar. "Tomorrow's the big show. You changed your mind yet?" Marianne looked at Gabriel resting on the couch, Lucia frosting a cake, Beatrice reading beside Gabriel. Her heart swelled. "Yes," she said finally. "I'll sing." Henry's face lit up as if someone had switched on all the Christmas lights of Sunny Creek at once. Great, he said. Because I already picked the perfect song. He strummed a few chords, soft, nostalgic, hopeful. A Christmas melody about second chances, returning home, and forgiveness. As Marianne listened, she felt something open inside her, a space she hadn't listened to in years, awakening like the first warm light of dawn. Christmas was coming. And this year, it would bring far more than she ever expected. The morning of Christmas Eve dawned remarkably clear in Sunny Creek. The sky seemed painted with soft strokes of blue and gold, and the air carried that unmistakable December perfume, fresh baked bread, ripe fruit, and memories insisting on returning. Houses glowed with new garlands and twinkling lights, creating a scene so alive it felt like a dream. But inside the Davis home, the atmosphere was different, quieter, more fragile, more precious. After breakfast, Gabriel stepped onto the porch and stood watching the street with a serene expression, as if each small detail, a bird singing, a neighbor sweeping, a light flickering, was a treasure he needed to hold on to. Marianne, seeing him like this, felt a knot form in her chest. Gabriel looked more tired than usual, more faded, as if his energy was slipping away without asking permission. It was clear his body was fighting a silent battle. Beatrice, who'd stayed at her mother's house the night before and returned early, noticed immediately. She approached with the delicate care of someone who knows every shadow on another's face. "Sleep okay?" she asked gently. "Slept what I could," Gabriel answered, with a weak smile. "But I woke up thinking today's going to be a beautiful day." Beatrice touched his shoulder with tenderness. Marianne watched from the hallway, and something warm, an unexpected feeling, moved through her chest. It wasn't jealousy. It was gratitude. Deep, honest, almost painful gratitude. Beatrice gave Gabriel a kind of care he hadn't had in years. In that moment, Lucia emerged from one of the bedrooms carrying 2 boxes full of ribbons and ornaments. "Marianne, honey, help me with this," she asked with a spark in her eyes. "I want the living room to look extra special today. This Christmas is different." Marianne smiled and moved to help. "Of course, Mom. Let's go." As they hung ribbons and arranged decorations, Marianne noticed something unexpected. Lucia was humming softly, the way she used to when Marianne and Gabriel were children. An old melody, gentle, full of tenderness. Marianne couldn't remember the last time she'd heard her mother sing with that kind of joy. By afternoon, Henry stopped by to pick up Marianne for the final rehearsal. He was leaning against the gate, guitar on his shoulder, radiating excitement. "Ready?" he asked. Marianne let out a nervous sigh. "I'm never ready to sing in front of people." "Perfect," Henry joked. "The best things in life start with 'I haven't done this in years.'" They walked together toward the town square. The whole place was vibrant, kids running in red hats, elderly folk setting up dessert tables, teenagers checking microphones and cables. The central gazebo sparkled with white lights and an enormous gold star. Henry climbed onto the makeshift stage and extended his hand to Marianne. "Come on up. Let's run through it one more time." Marianne took a deep breath, feeling her heart hammer in her chest, and climbed up. When she held the microphone, her hands trembled. Henry began playing the opening chords, soft, almost melancholic, with that touch of hope that only Christmas songs seem to carry. She closed her eyes, and began to sing. At first, her voice came out timid, shaky, but then it found strength, warmth, truth. Every word carried the exact weight of what she was living: reunions, reopened wounds, love, forgiveness, fear, life itself. When she finished and opened her eyes, she found Henry looking at her, not with surface admiration, but with deep, genuine respect. "I knew you had that inside you," he said, with a soft smile. Marianne felt warmth rise through her chest, a warmth she hadn't felt in years. "Thank you," she answered sincerely. "Don't thank me yet," Henry said. Tomorrow night will be magical. When she got home, the house was peaceful, glowing with warm tree lights. Gabriel was on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, gazing at the ornaments with an expression full of nostalgia. "How'd it go?" he asked softly. "Good," Marianne said, sitting beside him. "You're going to like the song." Gabriel smiled, but something in his expression made her lean closer. "You feeling okay?" she asked. "Tired," he admitted. "But it's a good tired. Like I'm finally living something I should have lived a long time ago." He looked at her with a brightness that made her bite her lip to keep from crying. "Thank you for not shutting me out," he said. "I know. I gave you every reason to." Marianne felt her throat tighten. "I missed you too, Gabriel," she confessed. "You weren't the only one who lost someone when Dad died. I lost you too." Gabriel looked down. "I'm sorry." Marianne took his hand. "Today we don't talk about guilt," she said gently. "Today you just stay here with us." And he squeezed her hand, grateful. The evening moved forward until it became one of those quiet Christmas Eves that seems to hold something sacred. Following tradition, the family left the front door open for neighbors who wanted to stop by. Children came with trays of cookies, elderly folks with stories, families sharing laughter. Everyone seemed to celebrate Gabriel's return without saying it out loud. Beatrice arrived at 7, holding a walnut tart, her grandmother's recipe. Lucia welcomed her like she was already family. "Come in, sweetheart. Tonight this house belongs to everyone." Beatrice got emotional. Marianne watched her interact with her mother and felt something gentle bloom in her chest. This was right. This was necessary. The table was set with care: cinnamon rolls, rice with raisins, Russian salad, roasted chicken with herbs, and Lucia's special touch, homemade sweet bread. But Gabriel, he looked paler than usual. More fragile. Every so often, he seemed to lose his breath, and his smile seemed to cost him effort. Marianne could see him struggling silently. "Want to sit down?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine," he said gently. "I want to be here." Beatrice noticed too. "I've got him," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder. At midnight, the family gathered in the living room. Lucia took the old family Bible, the same one Mr. Anthony used to read passages of hope from each Christmas, and read softly about forgiveness, unity, and renewal. Gabriel cried. Marianne cried. Beatrice, Henry, and everyone present let their tears fall in silence. It was one of those moments that gets tattooed on memory forever. After dinner, while some neighbors chatted on the porch, Gabriel asked to speak with Marianne and Beatrice alone in the living room. He held a folded envelope in trembling hands. "I need to show you something," he said, his voice unsteady. Marianne frowned. "What is it?" Gabriel took a shaky breath. His hands were shaking. "It's a letter," he said. "I wrote it the day I got the diagnosis. I was going to send it, but I didn't have the courage. Now. I think you need to read it." Marianne opened the envelope slowly. 2 handwritten pages. She began to read. "If you're reading this, it means I found courage, or you found this before I could send it. I'm writing because I can't run anymore. I don't want you to know about my leaving only when I'm already gone." Marianne's hands trembled. Beatrice held her arm gently. "I know I destroyed things. I know I ran at the worst possible moment. And I don't expect forgiveness. But I want you to know that, no matter how far away I was, you were the only thing that never left my heart." A tear fell on the paper. Gabriel watched in silence. "I'm sick. I don't have much time. And I realized I don't want to leave without looking my family in the eyes and saying, I'm sorry. And thank you. For everything you were to me." Marianne finished reading, sobbing. "Why write something like this?" she asked between tears. Gabriel swallowed hard. "Because I thought I wouldn't have the strength to come back. But I did, because I wanted to live this. You all. Before the end." Marianne embraced him tightly. Beatrice wrapped her arms around them both. And there, wrapped in a warm embrace with Christmas lights twinkling, Marianne understood that the climax of this story was only beginning. Christmas had arrived. And with it, the whole truth. The midnight hours in Sunny Creek were silent, almost sacred. Marianne couldn't sleep. Lying in bed, she heard the sounds of the house, the tick-tock of the old family clock, wind touching the windows, occasional footsteps in the kitchen. Her mind kept circling around everything that had happened in recent days. Gabriel. The diagnosis. The forgiveness that wasn't complete yet, but was beginning to take shape. She got up around 5 in the morning, when the sky was still dark but beginning to turn that soft blue that comes before sunrise. In the kitchen, she found Lucia making coffee, the way they did every Christmas since Marianne was small. "Couldn't sleep either?" Lucia asked, smiling. "No," Marianne answered, sitting at the table. "Thinking about everything." Lucia set a warm cup in front of her daughter. "You know, when your father was alive, he used to say Christmas was the night when you had permission to feel everything at once. Joy, sadness, hope, fear, all mixed together." She sat beside Marianne. "Because that's when you understand that all of it is part of being alive." Marianne sipped her coffee in silence, letting her mother's words sink deep. "Mom," she began, "do you think we can fix everything that broke?" Lucia took a deep breath. "No," she answered honestly. "But we can learn to live with the scars. And sometimes, the scars end up being more beautiful than unbroken skin." They sat there, mother and daughter, sharing coffee and silence, while the world slept around them. When the sun finally rose, Gabriel woke with difficulty breathing. Beatrice, who'd slept on the nearby couch to monitor him, noticed immediately. "Gabriel," she called, touching his forehead. "You're burning up." He opened his eyes slowly, struggling. He started, but his voice cut off. Marianne, coming downstairs, saw the scene and felt panic rise. "What happened?" she asked, rushing over. Beatrice was already finding the thermometer. "High fever," she said with medical precision. "Probably an infection. I need to take him to the hospital." Lucia appeared, and her face went pale. "Is he okay?" she asked, her voice weak. "He'll be fine," Beatrice answered with a confidence Marianne wished she felt. "But he needs care. Now." The drive to the hospital was tense and silent. Marianne drove while Beatrice held Gabriel's hand in the back seat. Lucia prayed softly, her lips moving in prayers that came from a place deep with faith and desperation. At Sunny Creek Hospital, small but well-equipped, Gabriel was taken to an observation room. Doctors ran tests, set up in 4, and Beatrice spoke with them in a corner, using medical terms Marianne couldn't fully understand. Hours passed. Hours that felt like days. Around 2 in the afternoon, the doctor emerged and called the family. "He has a respiratory infection," the doctor explained, a middle-aged man with tired eyes. "Nothing we can't treat with strong antibiotics. But..." He paused. "Given his condition, he needs to stay here for observation for several days." Lucia breathed deeply, relieved and terrified at once. "Will he be okay?" Marianne asked. The doctor hesitated. And that hesitation was enough for Marianne to understand the truth nobody wanted to say aloud. "We'll do our best," he answered finally. Gabriel spent Christmas Day in the hospital. It wasn't how anyone had imagined it. But in some strange way, it was even more special. Marianne, Lucia, and Beatrice took turns at his bedside. Henry showed up with his guitar and played songs in the doorway, soft melodies echoing through the hospital corridors, bringing a bit of Christmas magic to this place of pain and hope. Gabriel, despite the fever and exhaustion, smiled. "Did you manage to sing at the plaza?" he asked Marianne. "I did," she answered. "And it was beautiful. But it wasn't the same without you there." Gabriel held her hand. "I was there," he said. "In my heart, I was there." Lucia prepared a basket with homemade food, cinnamon rolls, chocolate cake, candies, and left it in the room. The hospital allowed them to have a small celebration, with the Christmas tree lights from the hallway shining through the open window. It was simple. But it was theirs. In the days that followed, Gabriel improved gradually. The fever dropped, his appetite returned, and he began spending more time awake. Beatrice stayed close, but now with a lighter smile, less worried. Marianne visited every day after work at the workshop. She brought stories from town, news about neighbors, and, most importantly, her presence. Just being there, sitting beside him, was enough. One afternoon, while Gabriel rested, Marianne and Beatrice talked in the hospital cafeteria. "He loves you very much," Beatrice said suddenly. Marianne looked at her, surprised. "Gabriel," Beatrice continued. "He talks about you all the time. Since we met, you were always the topic. The guilt he felt, the longing, the desire to make things right." Marianne felt her eyes burn. "He loves me too," she replied. "I just took too long to understand that anger and love aren't opposites. They can exist together." Beatrice smiled. "You're wise," she said. "Gabriel's lucky to have you as a sister." Marianne reached out and touched Beatrice's arm. "And he's lucky to have you. Thank you for taking care of him. For being here." Beatrice squeezed her hand. "I love him," she said simply. "And now, I love you all too." A week later, Gabriel was discharged. The doctors said he could go home, but with restrictions, rest, medications, regular follow-ups. The fever had passed, but it had left marks. Gabriel was weaker, more tired, as if that infection had accelerated something inside him. But he was alive. And for now, that's what mattered. Lucia welcomed him home with tears of joy. She'd prepared his room, the same one he'd left empty 10 years ago, with fresh flowers, cleaned sheets, and an old photo of the three of them hanging on the wall. Gabriel looked at the photo and cried. "Thank you," he said to his mother. "For not giving up on me." Lucia held him close. "A mother never gives up," she answered. "A mother loves. That's all." The days that followed were filled with simple but profound moments. Gabriel recovered slowly. Some days were good, he could sit on the porch, talk, even laugh. Other days were harder, he'd sleep almost the entire time, pain visible in every line of his face. But something was different now. There were no more heavy silences. There were conversations, long, deep, sometimes difficult, but always honest. Gabriel spoke about the years away. About the jobs he'd held, the cities he'd visited, the people he'd met. About how, in every place, he searched for something he could never find, until he realized what he was searching for was home. Marianne spoke about the anger she'd carried. About how she'd transformed that rage into work, into dedication to the workshop, into a way of not feeling. About how she'd slowly learned that life was more than just surviving. Lucia simply listened, holding both their hands, as if trying to unite them again through that touch. And Beatrice was there too, not as an outsider, but as part of this family being rebuilt, piece by piece. One night, 2 weeks after Christmas, Marianne was in the workshop when Henry appeared. "Hey," he said, leaning against the doorway. "I've missed you." Marianne smiled. "I've been busy. With Gabriel, with Mom." "I know," Henry replied. But you need to take care of yourself too. He stepped closer, and there was something different in the way he moved. More determined. Marianne. He began, I like you. I always have. And I know this isn't the best time, but, when things calm down a little, would you want to go out with me? Really, not as childhood friends, but as a date? Marianne studied him for a few seconds. Henry was handsome, kind, steady. But there was something she needed to resolve first. Let me see how things go with my family, she answered honestly. It's not a no. It's just, give me some time. Henry smiled. I'll wait as long as it takes. And in that moment, Marianne realized she was ready to live again. Not just survive, but truly live. 1 month later, Gabriel woke up struggling to breathe. Beatrice, who'd been sleeping on the nearby couch to monitor him, woke immediately. She called the ambulance, but she knew, and Marianne knew when she arrived at the hospital, that this was the end. Gabriel was admitted again, but this time there were no more treatments. Only comfort. Only being together. Lucia, Marianne, and Beatrice took turns at his bedside. He slept most of the time, but there were moments when he'd wake and whisper things, apologies, declarations of love, gratitude. On the final night, Gabriel asked to speak with Marianne alone. Come here, he said, his voice weak. Marianne approached, taking his hand. I'm here, Gabriel. I know, he replied. And that's all I needed. To know you were here. That Mom was here. That I wasn't dying alone. Marianne cried. You're not dying alone, she said. You're surrounded by people who love you. Gabriel smiled weakly. I know. And that. He took a shaky breath, struggling, that makes everything worth it. He closed his eyes. Take care of Mom, he asked. And, let Henry love you. You deserve to be happy. Marianne squeezed his hand. I will. I promise. Gabriel took one final deep breath. And when he exhaled, it was as if he released everything he'd been carrying, all the guilt, all the pain, all the anguish. He slipped away in the silence of early morning, with Marianne's hand in his. Gabriel's funeral was simple, but the whole town showed up. People came to say goodbye to that young man who'd left so suddenly, but who, in his final months, had taught everyone a lesson about love, forgiveness, and the importance of being together. Lucia stood with Marianne at her side. She wasn't crying, she'd cried enough. Now there was only a strange peace, as if she finally understood that Gabriel had found what he was looking for. Henry appeared with his guitar and played the same song Marianne had sung at the plaza. And when he reached the chorus, Marianne found herself singing too, her voice echoing through the cemetery, carrying with it all the pain and all the beauty of those final months. Beatrice was there too, dressed in black, but with a smile on her lips, the smile of someone who loved deeply and was loved in return. 6 months later, life in Sunny Creek had found a new rhythm. Marianne had expanded the workshop. Now she didn't just restore furniture, she also taught classes, helping others learn to transform old things into new ones. It was her way of honoring what Gabriel had taught her, that reconstruction is always possible. Lucia had started volunteering at the town's cultural center, which had finally reopened. She organized events, told stories, and had found a new purpose in life. And Marianne, she'd started dating Henry. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. It was kind. It was steady. And most importantly, it was her choice. One afternoon, while Marianne worked on an old chair, Henry appeared with 2 coffees. For you, he said, offering one. Marianne accepted, smiling. Thanks. They stood in silence for a few moments, watching the work. You know, Henry began, I think Gabriel would be happy seeing you like this. Happy. Alive. Marianne took a deep breath. I think so too, she answered. And I think he finally found peace. Henry took her hand. And you? Did you find peace too? Marianne thought about the question. She thought about Gabriel, about Lucia, about Beatrice, about all those months of reunion and goodbye. She thought about how pain had transformed into something deeper, not happiness, but acceptance. Understanding. Yes, she answered finally. I found it. The following Christmas, Lucia, Marianne, Beatrice, and Henry gathered at the Davis home. It wasn't the same without Gabriel, it never would be. But there was something beautiful in that absence too. A way of honoring him, of keeping him present through memory. They decorated the Christmas tree together. Lucia placed Gabriel's photo at the top, beside the gold star. He's here, she said with a gentle smile. He'll always be here. Marianne hugged her mother. Always, she agreed. And when that Christmas Eve arrived, with its twinkling lights, its cinnamon-scented air, its magic that can't be explained but everyone feels, Marianne finally understood what her father had said so many years ago. Christmas was the night when you had permission to feel everything at once. Joy, sadness, hope, fear. All mixed together. Because all of it was part of being alive. And being alive, truly alive, with all the scars, all the wounds, all the rebuilding, was the greatest magic of all. 5 years later, Marianne was opening a second workshop location in a neighboring town. Henry was with her now as her husband. They'd married in a simple ceremony at the Sunny Creek Town Square, with Lucia as the maid of honor. Beatrice had moved to the city and now worked at the local hospital. She and Marianne had become true friends, not just connected through Gabriel, but by genuine choice. And Lucia, she'd become a beloved figure in the community, known for her stories, her wisdom, and her ability to love without reservation. But every Christmas, they reunited at the old house, the house where it all began, where Gabriel had returned, where the family had been rebuilt. And on that special night, when the lights twinkled and the scent of Christmas filled the air, Marianne always remembered one thing. That the reunion nobody expected had become the blessing everyone needed. That forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing to love despite the wounds. And that sometimes, you have to lose someone to truly understand the value of having them. Christmas in Sunny Creek would never be the same. But it was better this way. Because now, it was real. Thank you for staying with me until the end. This story was created with so much care to touch your heart, the way it touched mine. If you loved it, please subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single chapter of stories that warm the soul. Now tell me, which part of this story moved you the most? The reunion? The forgiveness? Or that ending that stays with you? Write in the comments, I'd love to hear your experience. Until the next video, with more stories that transform lives.